Vice Admiral Nari, who would observe and grade the final exam, asked tough questions. Cadet Nam, your strategy relies on the Imperial Dreadnought emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, and every sensor in human space immediately locked onto it. The ship was enormous, so large that it created its own gravitational distortions. 1,200 smaller warships surrounded it like a protective shell. On the bridge of the HSS Horizon, Cadet Junho Nam took a deep breath. He was now Commander Nam, given temporary battlefield rank for this engagement. 60 ships were under his command, 60 ships against 1,200. The numbers looked impossible, but numbers weren't everything. All ships report ready, his communications officer reported. Junho looked at his co-commander, Minji Cha, who was managing the technical aspects of their plan.
Status on the hack?
I'm already inside their communication network, Minji replied, her fingers dancing across her console. They're using the same protocols as every other Vraxian ship we've captured. Their security is a joke. I have complete access to their fleet coordination systems. Don't sabotage anything yet. Let them get closer. We want them confident. On the Imperial Dreadnought, Threxus stood on his command bridge, which was the size of a human football field. Thousands of crew members worked at stations around him. Holographic displays showed the puny human fleet ahead. 60 ships, his tactical officer reported. Commander, they're barely trying. This is insulting. It's a trap, Threxus said quietly. He had learned to respect human cunning. They want us to think we've won. Stay alert. Watch for anything unusual. But even Threxus, with his newfound caution, couldn't imagine what was coming. Junho's plan was called the Anvil Chorus, and it relied on perfect synchronization. 30 ships would take specific positions around the dreadnought, targeting precise points in exact sequence to create cascading system failures. The other 30 ships would keep the escort fleet busy. Positions, everyone, Junho ordered. Remember, timing is everything. If we're even 2 seconds off, this won't work. Vice Admiral Nari watched from a safe distance in an observation ship. She had a holographic display showing the tactical situation and a scoring pad ready to grade the students' performance. Other senior officers watched with her, some skeptical that this plan would work. The two fleets approached each other. The Vraxian escort ships opened fire first, sending waves of plasma toward the human vessels. The human fleet split into 2 groups perfectly. 30 ships accelerated toward the dreadnought while 30 engaged the escort fleet. The engagement group, led by a cadet named Isul, used tactics they had practiced hundreds of times. They moved in patterns that confused Vraxian targeting systems, fired from unexpected angles, and disabled enemy ships with minimal waste of ammunition. They're learning from the previous battles, one Vraxian captain complained over his fleet channel. They're adapting to our tactics. We don't have tactics, another captain replied bitterly. We just shoot and hope. Meanwhile, Junho's 30 ships reached their positions around the Imperial Dreadnought. They formed a 3-dimensional grid, each ship exactly where it needed to be. Minji, upload the packet, Junho ordered. Minji pressed a button. Deep inside the Dreadnought's computer systems, a small program activated. It didn't sabotage anything. It didn't shut down weapons or engines. It simply mapped every system, every power conduit, every vulnerable point, and it sent that map to every human ship. We have complete schematic overlay, Junho's tactical officer reported. Uploading target coordinates to all ships. 30 ships received 30 different targeting solutions. Each had specific points to hit in a specific order. All ships, weapons ready. Fire on my mark in sequence Alpha. 3, 2, 1 mark. The first ship fired. Its railgun sent a projectile straight into a power junction on the dreadnought's port side. The junction exploded, cutting power to an entire section of the ship. 1 second later, the second ship fired. Its laser hit a communication relay that had just started routing signals around the damaged power junction. The relay shattered. 1 second after that, the third ship fired. Each shot was placed perfectly, targeting systems that were trying to compensate for previous damage. It was like watching someone play a musical instrument, each note following the last in perfect harmony. The Anvil Chorus had begun. Threxus watched in horror as his massive ship started falling apart from the inside. Shields failed in patches. Weapon systems went offline. Communication arrays shut down one by one. What's happening? He demanded. They're targeting our compensating systems, his chief engineer shouted over the alarms. Every time we reroute power, they hit the new junction. They know our ship better than we do. How is that possible? They must have hacked our systems. Commander, they have complete access. They're reading our schematics in real time. The attack continued for 8 minutes. 30 ships fired in perfect sequence, each shot destroying exactly what it needed to destroy. The Imperial Dreadnought, pride of the Vraxian Empire, was being systematically disabled by a force 1/20th its size. Threxus realized his fleet was beaten. The escort ships were being overwhelmed by the other half of the human fleet. His dreadnought was crippled, and the humans hadn't even used their full military force. This was students taking a test. Then something unexpected happened. The human weapons stopped firing. Commander Nam, I'm receiving an incoming transmission from the dreadnought, Junho's communications officer reported. It's Threxus. He wants to talk. Junho exchanged glances with Minji. This wasn't in the plan. Put him through. The holographic display showed Threxus. The Vraxian commander looked tired and defeated. His forearms hung at his sides. Human commander, Threxus said. I am Threxus of the Vraxian Empire. I wish to discuss terms of surrender. Junho blinked. He hadn't expected the enemy to give up so quickly. I need to confer with my superiors. Take your time. My ship isn't going anywhere. The communication ended. Junho immediately called Admiral Kang. Sir, the enemy wants to surrender. What do I do? We never covered this in training, Day laughed. Cadet Nam, you just won the war. Accept their surrender, secure their fleet, and treat the prisoners with respect. You've done brilliantly. But sir, we haven't destroyed the dreadnought yet. Should we finish the test? The test is over. You've proven you can defeat a superior force. There's no point in causing more damage. Well done, Commander. Junho felt a wave of relief wash over him. Thank you, sir. And my grade? Let's call it 98%. You lost 2 points for slightly inefficient fuel consumption in your approach vectors. Vice Admiral Wan confirmed the score. Outstanding performance, Cadet Nam. You and your team will graduate with the highest honors in Academy history. Junho opened the channel to Threxus again. Commander Threxus, we accept your surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. My people will ensure your crew receives medical attention and proper treatment. Before I surrender, Threxus said, I have something I want to show you. My intelligence officers compiled this from our observations of your people. A data file transferred to the human ships. Minji opened it and gasped. Hunyo, look at this. It was a complete analysis of human military capability, compiled by Vraxian intelligence over the past weeks. It showed every battle, every tactic, every weapon system the humans had used, and it showed what the humans hadn't used. Advanced weapons that had never been deployed. Ship classes that had never left dock. Entire fleets that hadn't been activated. You never used your full strength, Threxus said quietly. This whole time you were holding back. The weapons you used against us were training equipment. Your real military force never even mobilized. Junho didn't know what to say. It was true. Everything Earth Command had deployed against the Vraxians was considered basic or outdated by human military standards. The newest weapons, the most powerful ships, had stayed in reserve. Why? Threxus asked. Why didn't you destroy us when you could have? Because we didn't need to, Junho replied honestly. You weren't a real threat. You were a training opportunity. Why would we kill you when we could learn from fighting you and teach you to be better? Threxus was silent for a long moment. I received a message earlier. From your Admiral Kang. He said that when this war ended, we would be invited to study at your military schools. I thought it was a trick or an insult. It's neither, we mean it. If you and your people want to learn real warfare, we'll teach you. Not so you can conquer others, but so you can defend yourselves. Defend ourselves from what? From whoever comes next, Junho said. The galaxy is a big place. You've been lucky so far, only meeting peaceful species. But someday you'll encounter someone who isn't peaceful and isn't as nice as we are. When that day comes, you'll need to know how to fight. Another transmission came through. This time it was a personal message addressed to Threxus. Admiral Kang's face appeared. Commander Threxus, you have fought with honor against a superior force. There is no shame in this defeat. We invite you to learn from this experience. Surrender now and we will teach you what real warfare means. Not so you can conquer others, but so you can defend yourselves when you meet a species that won't be as gentle as we have been. Threxus felt something he had never experienced before. Respect for an enemy. Ambassador Seokjang walked through the detention facility on Luna Station, looking at thousands of Vraxian prisoners. They sat in clean, comfortable rooms with proper food and medical care. They looked confused more than angry. "Ambassador, you wanted to see me?" Commander Huan O approached. He was in charge of prisoner affairs, a job that had suddenly become very important. "Yes, Commander. I have a proposal that Admiral Kang has approved. I want to change how we handle these prisoners." "Sir? Stop treating them like prisoners. Start treating them like exchange students." Huan blinked. "Exchange students? Sir, they invaded us. They tried to invade us," Siak corrected. "There's a difference. And from what I've seen in the interrogation reports, most of these soldiers had no idea what they were getting into. They thought this would be easy. They've never actually fought a war before." Siak pulled up a file on his tablet. "Look at this. The Vraxian Empire has existed for 2,000 years. They've conquered 43 systems. But every single conquest was against peaceful civilizations, species that had no military, no weapons, no concept of organized warfare. The Vraxians showed up with big ships and those species surrendered immediately. So they're bullies." "Exactly. And like most bullies, they've never been punched back. Now they have been and they don't know what to do." Siak gestured to the prisoners. "These aren't evil beings. They're just ignorant. I think we can teach them." Huan thought about it. "What did you have in mind?" "Educational programs. Cultural exchanges. Let them attend lectures about human military history. Show them what real warfare looks like. Help them understand why they lost so badly. And maybe, just maybe, they'll go back to their empire and change things." The program started the next day. Dr. Ji-won Ryu, a xenopsychology specialist, gave the first lecture to a room full of Vraxian officers. She stood at the front of the classroom like a teacher addressing students. "Good morning. I'm Dr. Ryu, and I'm here to talk about why you lost this war so quickly." The Vraxians looked uncomfortable but curious. "Your empire has been conquering other species for 2,000 years, Ji-won continued. "You think of yourselves as warriors, but you're not. You're conquerors of the defenseless. There's a big difference." One Vraxian officer, the young one called Kelvin, raised his hand. "What is the difference?" "A warrior fights other warriors. A bully fights those who can't fight back. Your empire's very good at being bullies. You're terrible at being warriors." The Vraxians shifted in their seats, clearly uncomfortable with this assessment. Ji-won pulled up a holographic display. "Humans have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Not against other species, against each other. We've fought over land, resources, ideas, religions, and sometimes just because we didn't like each other. We've developed tactics, strategies, technologies, all designed to defeat other humans who are just as smart and dangerous as we are." She showed images of ancient human battles. Soldiers with swords and shields, archers firing arrows, cavalry charges. Then more modern warfare, guns, tanks, aircraft, missiles. "We've studied warfare like you might study mathematics or art. We have thousands of books about military strategy. We teach it in our schools. Every human child learns about famous battles and great generals. War is part of our culture." "That's horrible," one Vraxian said. "Maybe," Ji-won agreed. "But it also means we're very, very good at it. You brought 300 ships against us, then 600 more. We've been preparing to fight fleets of 10,000 ships from advanced civilizations. You weren't even a challenge, you were a training exercise." The room fell silent. The weight of that statement settled on the Vraxian officers. Another officer asked, "If you're so good at war, why didn't you destroy us? Why did you capture us instead of killing us?" "Because we've also learned about mercy," Ji-won said. "We know when to fight and when to show compassion. You weren't a real threat, so we didn't need to kill you. We're not monsters, we just know how to fight." The lectures continued for weeks. Vraxian prisoners learned about human military history, from ancient Rome to the world wars to the colony conflicts. They learned about tactics, logistics, intelligence gathering, and strategic planning. Some of them were fascinated. Others were horrified. All of them began to understand just how outmatched they had been. Erin Moon, a cultural anthropologist, ran a different kind of program. She organized meetings between human soldiers and Vraxian prisoners, letting them talk as people rather than enemies. In one session, Colonel Yoonji Song sat across from a Vraxian ship captain named Thornak. "You boarded my ship," Thornak said. "Your soldiers moved through it like they knew every corner." "How?" "Training," Yoonji replied. "We practice boarding operations constantly. Every Marine goes through hundreds of simulations before they ever see real combat. We study ship layouts, practice room clearing, learn how to handle hostages and prisoners. It's what we do." But why practice so much if you've been at peace for 90 years? Because peace doesn't last forever. We learned that lesson the hard way hundreds of years ago. Better to prepare and not need it than need it and not be ready. Thornek shook his head. My people conquered 43 systems without preparation. We thought strength was enough. Strength without skill is just wasted energy, Yunji said. You're strong, Thornek. Your people are physically more powerful than humans. But you never learned how to use that strength effectively. Young Vraxian officers started requesting asylum, wanting to study at human military academies. They were ashamed of their empire's methods and wanted to learn real warfare. The requests created a diplomatic problem. Admiral Kang discussed it with Earth's government. If we accept them as students, the defense minister said, we're essentially training potential future enemies. Or potential future allies, Siak countered. These young officers are already changing their perspectives. Imagine if they go back to the Vraxian Empire with real military training. They could reform their entire culture. That's optimistic. Maybe. But it's better than killing them all. And who knows? Maybe someday we'll be glad we made friends instead of corpses. The government approved a limited program. 50 Vraxian officers would be allowed to enroll in human military academies, starting from basic training. While all this was happening, Threxus made his final decision. He would commit everything. The last reserves of the Vraxian military. 1,200 ships including the Imperial Dreadnought, the largest vessel in the Vraxian fleet. It was a desperate move. If this failed, the Vraxian Empire would be defenseless. But Threxus couldn't return home in defeat without trying everything. The Imperial Dreadnought was massive, 15 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. It carried enough firepower to bombard a planet into submission. It was the pride of the Vraxian Empire, built over 50 years and never defeated in battle. Of course, it had never actually fought in battle. It had only been used to intimidate surrendering civilizations. When Admiral Kang received intelligence about the Dreadnought's approach, he smiled. This was perfect. He called General Suman at the academy. How many students do you have in advanced tactics? About 300 of our best, sir. They're preparing for final exams, canceled their written exams. I have a better test for them. Day pulled up schematics of the Imperial Dreadnought that human intelligence had gathered. Look at this monster. It's huge, heavily armed, and according to our analysis, full of design flaws. Design flaws? The Vraxians built it to look impressive, not to be efficient. It has massive blind spots, inefficient power distribution, vulnerable communication arrays. It's a target-rich environment for anyone who knows what they're looking for. You want the students to fight it? I want them to plan how to fight it. 2 weeks to analyze the target and create a battle plan. Then they'll execute that plan with real ships against a real enemy. If they succeed, they graduate with honors. General Suman laughed. Sir, I love the way you think. I'll inform the students immediately. At the academy, 300 of humanity's best tactical students received their final exam assignment. They had 2 weeks to figure out how to defeat the Imperial Dreadnought. The students divided into teams, analyzing every aspect of the massive ship. They found its weaknesses, mapped its systems, and developed attack strategies. One student stood out among all the others. Cadet Junho Nam was 24 years old and had scored perfect marks in every tactical simulation he'd ever taken. He was brilliant, creative, and completely focused. Junho spent 3 days just staring at the Dreadnought schematics, not talking to anyone, barely eating. His teammates worried he was having a breakdown. On the 4th day, he smiled. I've got it. I know how to beat this thing. His teammate, Cadet Minji Cha, looked at his notes. She was an engineering genius who understood ship systems better than anyone. Unho, this is brilliant. But we'll need to hack into their computer systems to pull this off. Can you do it? Give me a week with the communication protocols we captured from other Vraxian ships. Yes, I can do it. They worked together, Junho refining the tactical approach while Minji developed the hacking strategy. The other students contributed their own ideas, building on the foundation. 2 weeks later, they presented their plan to Admiral Kang and a panel of senior officers. Because class is about to get much more interesting. Colonel Yunji Song watched through the window of her assault shuttle as 600 Vraxian warships approached Mars orbit. Most officers would feel fear looking at such a massive fleet. Yunji felt excitement. She had spent 15 years training Marines for boarding operations, and she had never had the chance to test them in real combat. Colonel, we're receiving our target assignments. her second-in-command reported. High Command wants us to board and secure 20 Vraxian vessels for intelligence gathering. 20? Yunji grinned. Tell them we can handle 30. High teams need the practice. Across the solar system, Admiral Kang had divided the Vraxian fleet into sections. Different academy classes would engage different groups, turning the battle into a competitive training event. Points would be awarded for tactics, efficiency, and minimal casualties. The Advanced Tactics class would face 200 ships near Mars. The Strategic Warfare class would engage 200 ships near Earth. The remaining 200 ships would be handled by the newest graduates, still considered rookies. Threxus stood on his command deck, confident that 600 ships would overwhelm the humans. His tactical displays showed human forces numbering only 300 vessels. The math was simple, 2 against 1, victory was certain. All ships attack formation Conqueror's Fist, Threxus commanded. We'll break them with pure force. The Vraxian fleet charged forward in a massive wave. It looked impressive and terrifying, exactly the kind of attack that had made 43 civilizations surrender without firing a shot. Then the humans opened fire. The Advanced Tactics class had set a trap. They positioned their ships near Mars's orbital defense platforms, old installations built during the colony wars of the previous century. The platforms hadn't been used in combat for 90 years, but they still worked perfectly. 200 Vraxian ships flew straight into a crossfire. Railguns from the platforms hit them from above, while the Academy fleet struck from below. The Vraxians tried to scatter, but they were packed too tightly together. Their own ships blocked each other's movements. In the first 10 minutes, 60 Vraxian vessels were disabled. Near Earth, the Strategic Warfare class was running a different exercise. Instead of engaging directly, they used electronic warfare to hack into Vraxian communication systems. The alien ships suddenly started receiving false orders, telling them to move to wrong positions and target their own allies. The Vraxian formation fell apart as ships collided with each other, confused and disoriented. Human vessels picked them off one by one, disabling engines and weapons with careful precision. The newest graduates, fighting their section of the fleet, were having the hardest time. They made mistakes, wasted ammunition, and took longer to disable each target. Their instructors watched from observation ships, taking notes and radiating suggestions. But even the rookies were winning. The technological advantage was simply too great. Yunji's Marines launched their boarding operation 2 hours into the battle. 30 assault shuttles flew toward disabled Vraxian ships, their crews ready for close combat. Remember your training, Yunji told her teams over the radio. Non-lethal force only. Stun weapons, not live rounds. We're capturing prisoners, not executing aliens. Make me proud. The Marines breached the first Vraxian vessel through its damaged hull. They moved through the corridors in perfect formation, armor sealed against possible atmosphere loss, weapons ready. They found the Vraxian crew huddled in the command center, looking terrified. These were soldiers who had never actually fought before. They had conquered peaceful civilizations by simply showing up with big ships. They didn't know what to do when someone fought back. Secure them, treat any injuries, then move to the next ship, Yunji ordered. Her Marines stunned the Vraxian crew with non-lethal weapons, checked them for injuries, and secured them in the ship's cargo bay with emergency life support. Then they moved to the next target. By the end of the day, Yunji's teams had boarded 43 ships. They had captured over 2,000 Vraxian soldiers without killing a single one. 3 Marines had minor injuries from accidents, not combat. On other captured vessels, something strange was happening. Some Marines, waiting for transport ships to pick up prisoners, started playing old training videos for their captives. The videos showed human military history, famous battles, and tactical exercises. The Vraxians watched in horror and fascination. They saw humans fighting each other with increasingly deadly weapons over thousands of years. They saw tactics and strategies that made their own military knowledge look like child's play. One young Vraxian officer, his name was Kelvin in human translation, asked his Marine guard a question. Why do you show us this? Why do you teach your enemies? The Marine, a corporal named Inho, shrugged. Because you're not really our enemies. You're just bullies who picked on the wrong species. Maybe if you learn something, you'll stop bothering peaceful civilizations. Lieutenant Hyun Lee was having the time of his life. He was a pilot instructor, and he had taken 30 cadets into battle against Vraxian fighters. The enemy pilots were brave but unskilled. flying in straight lines and making predictable moves. Watch and learn, Hyun told his students over the radio. This is how you execute a split-S maneuver. He dove his fighter straight at a Vraxian ship, then flipped upside down and pulled up sharply. The enemy pilot tried to follow and ended up spinning out of control. Hyun disabled the fighter's engines with a precise laser shot. Now you try, he told his cadets. One by one, the students practiced their maneuvers on real targets. When they disabled enemy fighters, they used tractor beams to pull the pilots to safety before their ships drifted into danger. Some Vraxian pilots were captured 3 or 4 times in a single day. They would be disabled, rescued, detained, and then released to watch human training videos. Then their ships would be repaired just enough to fly, and they'd be sent back to the battle to give the cadets more practice. One Vraxian pilot, after being captured for the 5th time, just started laughing. "You're not even trying to kill us," he said to his captors. "You're using us as training dummies." "Well, yes," the Marine guarding him admitted. "But we're treating you well, right? Food, water, medical care? Better than my own fleet treats me," the pilot admitted. By the end of 2 weeks, the situation was clear. Humanity had captured over 800 Vraxian vessels and detained 40,000 alien soldiers. The prisoners were housed in comfortable facilities across the solar system, fed well, given medical care, and treated with basic respect. And they were all required to watch educational videos about human military history. Dr. Kyung Han, a physicist working at the Mars Research Station, saw an opportunity in all this combat. He had been developing experimental shield technology for years, but he could never test it against real weapons fire. "Admiral Kang," he called during one of the daily briefings, "I have a request. I want to equip some of our older cruisers with my prototype shields and send them against Vraxian bombardment groups. Will the crews be safe?" Day asked. "Safer than with standard shields. My design should absorb 97% of incoming plasma fire, but I need real combat data to prove it." "Approved, but keep medical teams on standby." Kyung equipped 12 old cruisers with his new shields and sent them straight into the heaviest Vraxian fire. The enemy fleet threw everything they had at these ships, and the shields held perfectly. The energy readings were incredible. The new design was actually more efficient than anyone had hoped. The test was a complete success. Kyung's shields would become standard equipment on all human vessels within a year. Bora Shin was not a military officer. She was a civilian logistics coordinator, managing supplies for the entire defense fleet. The Vraxian invasion had created the biggest logistics challenge in human history, and she was treating it as her personal final exam. 30 different fleets were engaged in combat across the solar system. Each needed ammunition, fuel, food, medical supplies, and replacement parts. Bora coordinated it all from her office on Luna Station, working 18-hour days and loving every minute. "Colonel Song needs more stun grenades for her boarding teams," her assistant reported. "The strategic class is running low on electronic warfare drones. And someone accidentally ordered 10,000 pizzas instead of medical rations for the Mars fleet. Fix the pizza order, rush stun grenades to Song's position, and manufacture more drones from the Jupiter facility," Bora replied without looking up from her screens. "And find out who ordered the pizzas. If they did it on purpose, they're getting promoted. We need people who can think creatively under pressure." Everything ran smoothly. Supplies reached every fleet on time. Costs were kept under budget. 0 critical shortages occurred. On the Vraxian command ship, Threxis was having a breakdown. His entire military force, 600 of his finest vessels, had been defeated by what appeared to be human students. His intelligence officers had intercepted human communications and confirmed the horrible truth. "They're treating this as a training exercise," his chief intelligence officer reported. "They're grading their commanders on performance. They're using our fleet as practice targets for their military academies." Threxis felt something he had never experienced before: humiliation. The mighty Vraxian Empire. Commander Jiho Lim stood on the bridge of the HSS Phoenix, trying very hard not to throw up. He was 26 years old and had graduated from the Space Force Academy exactly 3 days ago. Now he was in command of 30 warships about to face an alien invasion force. "Sir, are you okay?" Ensign Sora Kim asked from the weapons station. She looked as nervous as he felt. "I'm fine," Jiho lied. "Just checking the tactical display." The truth was that Jiho kept expecting someone to tell him this was all a mistake. He had scored high in his classes, yes, but actual command? Against real aliens? It seemed impossible. His communications officer, a young woman named Yuna Bayek, turned toward him.
Sir Admiral Kang is on a secure channel.
He wants to speak with you. Jiho's stomach dropped. Put him through. The Admiral's face appeared on his personal screen. The old man looked calm, almost amused. Commander Lim, you look worried. Is everything all right? Sir, I just want to make sure this isn't some kind of advanced simulation. This is really happening, right? Day smiled. It's really happening, Commander. 50 Varaxian warships are heading toward the Jupiter sector. They expect to sweep through and destroy our mining stations there. Your orders are to intercept and neutralize them. Neutralize, sir? Not destroy? Correct. We want prisoners for intelligence gathering. We want their ships intact for study. And Commander, we want you to follow every protocol you learned at the Academy. This is your final exam, but it's also real combat. Do you understand? Jiho straightened in his chair. Yes, sir. We'll handle it. I know you will. Admiral Kang out. The screen went dark. Jiho looked around his bridge. Ensign Sora at weapons, barely 23 years old. Ensign Tae Huang at navigation, who had graduated second in his class. The entire crew was young, fresh, and completely untested. But they were also the best trained military force in human history. They had spent years preparing for this. All ships, this is Commander Lim. He spoke into the fleet-wide channel. The Vraxian advance force will reach our position in 90 minutes. We're going to intercept them at the edge of Jupiter's gravity well. Ensign Huang, plot the approach course. Tae's fingers danced across his console. Sir, I have an idea. If we use the gravity from 3 of Jupiter's moons, we can slingshot into position. It'll save fuel and put us exactly where we need to be. Show me. The tactical display lit up with a complex series of arcs and trajectories. The human fleet would swing past each moon, using their gravity to build speed and change direction. It was brilliant and efficient. Approved, Jiho said. Send the course to all ships. Everyone follows Phoenix's lead. As the fleet moved into position, Yuna spoke up again. Sir, I'm getting strange readings from the Vraxian fleet. They're broadcasting on open channels. What are they saying? They're talking to each other about dinner plans? One captain is complaining about the food on his ship. Another is discussing what he'll do with his share of Earth's resources after we surrender. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Sora shook her head in disbelief. Sir, they're not even on combat alert. They think this is a cruise. Jiho felt his confidence growing. These aliens had no idea what they were walking into. Keep monitoring their communications. Any tactical information could be useful. On Earth, millions of people were watching the upcoming battle on their screens. Every news channel was covering it. The government had decided to broadcast the engagement live, though most civilians thought it was some kind of publicity stunt. War correspondent Yuna Bayek, who happened to be the communications officer's sister, was embedded with the fleet. Her camera drones captured everything as she provided commentary. This is Yuna Bayek reporting from the HSS Phoenix. She spoke to her camera. In just under an hour, humanity will face its first battle against an alien civilization. The mood here is tense but focused. Commander Lim and his crew are young, but they've trained their entire lives for this moment. Back on the bridge, the Vraxian fleet appeared on long-range sensors. Visual confirmation, Tae reported. 50 enemy vessels approaching in a standard wedge formation. Jiho studied the enemy formation. It was exactly like the diagrams in his academy textbooks, the same formation human fleets had used 100 years ago. It was predictable and easy to counter. They're making this too easy, Sora muttered. Don't get overconfident, Jiho warned. These are still 50 warships with real weapons. One mistake and people die. Everyone check your stations twice. The crew went silent, running through their checklists. Jiho appreciated the reminder to himself as much as to them. This might be a training exercise for Earth Command, but for the people on these ships it was deadly serious. 30 minutes to intercept, Tae announced. All ships, battle stations, Jiho ordered. Raise shields, charge weapons, but hold fire until my command. Remember the rules of engagement. Disable only. No lethal force unless absolutely necessary. The human fleet completed its gravity-assisted maneuver perfectly. 30 ships swung around Jupiter's moons and accelerated into optimal attack positions. The Vraxians didn't even notice until it was too late. They're scanning us now, Sora reported. I think they just realized we're here. How are they reacting? They're laughing, sir. Their communications are full of jokes about our small fleet. They think 30 ships against 50 is suicide. Jiho smiled grimly. Let them think that. All ships. Target their engines and weapons systems. Precision strikes only. Fire on my mark. The Vraxian fleet opened fire first. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward the human ships. They hit the Phoenix's shields and dissipated harmlessly, barely registering on the power meters. Their weapons are even weaker than we thought. Sora reported. Our shields are at 98%. Those plasma bolts are like throwing rocks at a tank. Good. All ships execute attack pattern Delta. Mark. 30 human warships fired in perfect synchronization. Railguns accelerated projectiles to incredible speeds. Laser batteries cut through space with surgical precision. Missiles tracked their targets with advanced AI guidance. The Vraxian wedge formation collapsed in 17 minutes. Jiho watched in amazement as his fleet systematically disabled every enemy ship. The Phoenix's weapons, controlled by Sora's expert hands, took out the engines of 3 Vraxian vessels without scratching their hulls. Across the fleet, other commanders were doing the same. The Vraxians tried to fight back. They fired everything they had. But their weapons were outdated. Their tactics were predictable and their shields were weak. The human fleet danced around them, striking precisely and retreating before return fire could even get close. Enemy flagship is trying to retreat, Tay reported. Disable its engines, Jiho ordered. Don't let any of them escape. Sora fired a perfect shot that knocked out the flagship's main drive. The massive Vraxian vessel went dead in space, drifting helplessly. One by one, all 50 enemy ships went dark. Not a single one was destroyed. Not a single alien was killed. They were simply disabled, their crews trapped inside powerless vessels. All enemy ships neutralized, Sora announced. 0 casualties on our side. All systems green across the fleet. Jiho sat back in his chair, barely believing it. Send for recovery teams. I want those ships towed to secure facilities and those crews taken into custody. Treat them well. Give them medical attention if needed. Sir, we're getting a transmission from Admiral Kang. The Admiral appeared on screen, smiling broadly. Excellent work, Commander Lim. Textbook execution. Your academy instructors would be proud. Thank you, sir. It was easier than expected. Don't let that make you careless. The Vraxians will send more ships. They'll be angry now. But you've proven that our graduates can handle real combat. How do you feel? Jiho thought about it. Honestly, sir, I feel like I just passed my final exam. You did, and you got top marks. Kang out. Across human space, people who had watched the battle sat in stunned silence. It had lasted 17 minutes. 30 human ships had defeated 50 alien warships without taking a single casualty. On the Vraxian command ship, Threxus the Conqueror watched the battle footage in disbelief. His advance force, 50 of his best ships, had been defeated by a smaller fleet of humans. And the humans hadn't even destroyed them. They had disabled them like a teacher taking toys from children. How? Threxus demanded. How did they defeat us so easily? His tactical officer studied the recordings. Commander, they're using technology far beyond ours. And their tactics, I've never seen anything like it. The way they moved, the precision of their strikes, it was like watching artists paint. Threxus slammed his fist on his command chair. They made it look easy. They made us look like fools. What are your orders, Commander? Threxus stood up, his forearms crossed over his chest. Send for reinforcements. 600 ships, our entire reserve fleet. We'll crush them with overwhelming numbers. 600 ships, sir. That's our largest military deployment in history. I know, but we cannot allow this insult to stand. The Vraxian Empire does not lose battles. We will show these humans what true power means. As the Vraxian Empire mobilized its forces, Admiral Kang received the intelligence reports about the enemy's plans. 600 ships were coming. He smiled and called General Suman at the academy. How many students do you have ready for midterm exercises? About 4,000, sir. Why? The warning message arrived at exactly 3 in the morning, Earth Standard Time. Admiral Day Kang was already awake, drinking his 4th cup of coffee while reviewing supply reports at the Luna Station Command Center. The massive screens covering the curved walls suddenly flashed red, and every officer in the room jumped to attention. Sir, we have an incoming transmission, Captain Hana Yoon called out from her station. It's on all frequencies. They want us to see this. Day nodded and gestured toward the main screen. Put it through. The image that appeared made several younger officers gasp. A massive alien stood before them, easily 8 feet tall with dark purple skin and 4 arms. Its face was flat with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle pattern. Golden armor covered its chest and dozens of medals hung from chains across its body. Primitive humans of Earth, the alien spoke in perfect English, though its mouth movements did not match the words. Translation software, Day realized. I am Threxus the Conqueror, High Commander of the Vraxian Empire. We have conquered 43 star systems. You will be the 44th. Hana raised her eyebrows and glanced at Day. He kept his expression neutral, watching the alien continue its speech. Our fleet of 300 warships now surrounds your pathetic solar system. You have 72 hours to surrender all military forces and submit to Vraxian rule. If you refuse, we will destroy every human settlement in space and bombard your home planet until you beg for mercy. This is your only warning. Threxus has spoken. The transmission ended. The command center fell silent for a moment. Then Lieutenant Minho Park started laughing. He tried to stop himself, covering his mouth with his hand, but the laughter burst through anyway. Within seconds, half the command center was chuckling. I'm sorry, sir, Minho managed between laughs. But did he just say 300 ships? For our entire solar system? Day allowed himself a small smile. That does seem inadequate. Captain Yoon, analysis, please. Hana's fingers flew across her console. Data streamed across her screens as the computers processed the Vraxian transmission. Admiral, I've analyzed their broadcast signal and traced their fleet positions. They're using technology equivalent to our military systems from approximately 50 years ago. Their ships are large but slow. Energy signatures suggest basic fusion drives and plasma weapons. Plasma weapons? Another officer called out. Sir, we stopped using those in 2297. They're terribly inefficient. Day walked to the central holographic display. It showed the solar system with 300 red dots representing enemy vessels. They were arranged in a simple sphere around human space, evenly distributed. It was the most basic formation possible. They've never fought a real war, Day said quietly. Look at their positioning. No tactical depth, no reserve forces, no consideration for supply lines or retreat vectors. This is how you surround a planet that can't fight back. Dr. Nari Cho, the station's head xenobiologist, approached the Admiral. She had been studying the transmission on her tablet. Sir, I've been researching the Vraxian Empire. They're telling the truth about conquering 43 systems. But every single one of those systems had peaceful, non-military civilizations. The Vraxians have never encountered a species that fights back. So they think we're like the others, Hana said. Peaceful and defenseless. They don't know, Minho added, grinning now. They have no idea that humans have been fighting wars since we lived in caves. They don't know we've spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other more efficiently. Day nodded slowly. An idea was forming in his mind. Dr. Cho, in your research, did you find any evidence that the Vraxians commit genocide? Do they destroy civilizations or just conquer them? They conquer and absorb, Nari replied. Conquered species become part of their empire. They're not kind rulers, but they're not mass murderers either. More like bullies, Day repeated. He made his decision. Send a message to Earth Command, Mars Defense, and all colony worlds. Emergency council meeting in 1 hour. And someone wake up General Suman from the Academy. I need her input on this. Exactly 1 hour later, Day stood before a holographic conference table surrounded by the faces of Earth's military leadership. Generals, admirals, and civilian defense ministers from across the solar system waited for him to speak. The Vraxian Empire has declared war on humanity. Day began. They've given us 72 hours to surrender. Several faces showed alarm. General Suman, the head of the Space Force Academy, just looked curious. Their fleet consists of 300 vessels with technology from our 2290s, Day continued. They're using basic tactics that suggest no real military experience. Based on Dr. Cho's research, they've only conquered peaceful civilizations who surrendered immediately. So they're overconfident, one of the Mars admirals said. We can crush them easily. We can, Day agreed. But I propose we do something different. General Suman, how many cadets graduated from the Academy last month? Suman's eyes lit up with understanding. Approximately 1,500, sir. They're all waiting for their first assignments. And your advanced classes? The ones about to graduate next month? Another 2,000 cadets in various stages of training. Day smiled. Then I propose we reclassify this Vraxian invasion as Training Exercise Crimson Dawn. We assign fresh graduates to command positions, with experienced officers serving as observers and evaluators. We treat this as a live-fire training scenario. The conference table erupted in discussion. Some officials looked shocked. Others were laughing. General Suman was nodding eagerly. Admiral Kang, the Earth Defense Minister, said carefully, "You want to use an actual alien invasion as a training exercise?" "Why not?" Day replied. "We've been preparing for war against a powerful enemy for centuries. We built fleets, developed weapons, trained millions of soldiers, and we've had peace for 90 years. Our forces need real experience, but we can't justify fighting each other anymore. The Vraxians are offering us exactly what we need, a live combat situation against an opponent who won't present any real danger." "But what about casualties?" another minister asked. "Our simulations suggest minimal risk," Hana spoke up, displaying her analysis. "The technological gap is enormous. Their weapons will barely scratch our modern shields. We can disable their ships without destroying them, capture their crews without killing them. This is the safest war we could possibly fight." Minho added his own data. "We've also intercepted their fleet communications. They're not even maintaining combat readiness protocols. Half their ships have crews sleeping in shifts as if they're on a peaceful patrol. They truly believe we'll just surrender." The discussion continued for 20 minutes. Finally, Earth's highest-ranking general, an old woman named Hayun, who had served for 60 years, spoke. "In all my years of service, I never thought I'd see the day when we had to decide whether a war was challenging enough to take seriously." She laughed, shaking her head. "Admiral Kang, I support your proposal. Let's teach our children what real combat looks like. And let's teach these Vraxians why humans are not to be trifled with." The vote was unanimous. Training Exercise Crimson Dawn was approved. As the holographic conference ended, Hana approached Day. "Sir, should we send a response to Threxus?" "Yes," Day said. "Tell him we acknowledge his message and will provide our answer within the 72-hour deadline. Be polite, no need to provoke them yet. And the graduates?" Day smiled. "Start calling them. Tell them their first assignment has been moved up. And Hana, make sure they know this isn't a simulation. This is real. The aliens just aren't very good at it." Across the solar system, young officers who had graduated days earlier received the call they had been waiting for. They were going to war. They were terrified and excited and determined to prove themselves. None of them knew that they were about to make history, not by fighting the war of the century, but by turning it into the greatest training exercise humanity had ever conducted. Above Earth, the Vraxian fleet waited in their perfect sphere formation, confident that the primitive humans would surrender soon. They had no idea what was coming.